happening.
And
we're live. Yay! Okay. So, hello, everybody. Hi. How are you? Happy day. Happy Sunday. Happy the stars and the blackness between them day.
yes.
Happy #read a damn book. Happy Evelyn's with us. Happy everything. It's all happening.
It's happening.
How are you? We've already done this, but like for the people. For the people, how are we? How are we doing? How are we doing?
I'm good. I'm feeling light. I'm feeling bright. I got my tie-dye on. Whenever I got tie-dye on, that's when you know I'm feeling good.
Good. I'm so excited. I'm very excited. So for everybody who is joining us in the chats, and let me just make sure that I can see the chats and stuff. And if you're in here watching on YouTube, well, that's the only place you can watch it. So please just let us know you're here and put in a comment. And so, okay, I see about 3 of you here. So it's good. We're going to have a nice, sweet chat. So by way of introduction, for those of you who are new to the Read a Damn Book experience, not a book club experience with Evelyn and I, this is the second time that we are getting together to talk about a book that Evelyn chose last time. It's just, I don't know, like it's kind of a way for us to just read a book together and talk about it and read with other people and stuff.
Yeah, I definitely am one of those people that grew up being an avid super reader, and it kind of like trailed off. And I'm trying to get back into it through the goodness and benevolence of my booktube friend.
And I'm here for it because like it's, one of the things about like content creation stuff, unless you're buddy reading with somebody, it can sometimes be a little bit like solitary, or sometimes if you take it too seriously, sometimes it can end up feeling like work, right? Like I just have to get this done because I have a review or I have an interview or whatever. And I just wanted to get the pleasure. Like I wanted to create another way, because there are a lot of ways that I do this, but another way to sort of experience the pleasure of reading, and to do it with somebody who isn't necessarily like plugged into the booktube community too, because there's like, there's another feel to it, another energy to it, and so it's cool. I now have all my bases covered. My bookish booktube friends and my internet cousin, and trying to get my family into it, but we will see. So like we talked when we were talking about how we wanted to start. One of the things that we said was we wanted to sort of talk a little bit about why we're reading the kinds of books we're reading, and what are the kinds of books that we're reading, and why that's important. And I read Black science fiction and fantasy. I tend towards done really because like after how many years of indoctrination, it's important to kind of like self-emancipate. And and I think one of the important pieces, especially now, I don't know how you feel about it, Evelyn. Like I feel like in this historical moment, or these historical moments, stories by Black people that are futuristic, like stories that, make a point of imagining another world. And imagining us in it, I have to say, literally today bring tears to my eyes, because if the news is the only story that I have, I don't know what I'm going to do with that.
Yeah, for sure. And I've always loved specifically like magical realism, this idea that magic is amongst us. It's not this thing that's like over there, it's here. And so that's why when we started collaborating, I was like, this is dope. Like I get what I actually enjoy written by us. And so that makes the reading experience so much more personal, and it hits. When it hits, we'll talk about it. When it hits, it hits.
And you said something that I really like, because you, as my friend as my friend Musical Tati would say, you word things so well. You said, in getting into talking about the book, let's sort of talk about how we come into the ecosystem of Junauda Petrus-Nasah, the author of the Stars and the Blackness Between Them, and the book itself. So I'm ready to have that conversation. Do you want to go first? Do you want me to go? How do you want to do it?
Well, I feel like I should first point out that I have annotations. Okay.
Did you write in the book too?
Yeah, I underline things. Yeah, it's all in there. And then everyone should know this. I was graciously gifted the Melanin Eclectic reading planner by our good sis Jerry of Onyx Pages. And so I have my notes. I did the whole thing.
I'm very excited about that. This makes me very happy. Yes. So I know Tatiana's having a problem because she's still getting into the whole idea of writing on the pristine pages of your book. So let's just make sure that we show her all the ways that we've written and taken care of that. So we're gonna do a little flip through.
Yeah.
Were you done?
Oh yes.
So I met Junauda because I was at a facilitated intensive weekend facilitated by Adrienne Marie Brown, who wrote Emergent Strategy and Pleasure Activism and was one of the co-editors of Octavia's Brood along with Walida Imarisha. And so it was a group of maybe, I don't know, felt like 50 or 60 people in Detroit. And as a Canadian, I really welcome any opportunity to be around people of color, queer folks, Black folks in the US, because it's just a different vibe. Very, very different vibe. And so it was so cool to be there and to meet all these smart, fly, magical, political people. It was just this big cipher. And Junauda was one of the people there. And we didn't really have an opportunity to talk, but because we were doing a lot of group work and we weren't in the same group. But at some point we both kind of realized that we were Trini by through the diaspora. And we're just I want to talk to you. Let's find a moment during the weekend where we can just connect, because you look really interesting. You're saying interesting things. Let's connect with Trini and all that, whatever, right? So we decided that we would go on we were supposed to go on this trip to this community farm. And so we thought, okay, we're going on this big yellow school bus. Let's just sit beside each other. And we can talk on the way and back or both or whatever. And so she's like, yeah, let's do that. And so we did that. We sat beside each other on the school bus, and I was very, very excited because I was she told me she was writing a book, and she told me that it had to do Trini stuff and diaspora stuff and queer stuff and magic. And I was oh, those are all me. Let's talk about it. And I sat beside her and promptly fell asleep for the entire ride to the garden. The entire ride, I slept beside Junauda. And then when the bus stopped, I got up and I was shit, I'm so sorry. And then she's no, don't worry, sis. We have the trip back. It's fine, right? So we got out and went our separate ways, enjoyed the garden. And on the way back, same thing, slept all the way back. And we didn't talk or any of those things. So I was just left with this lovely sort of impression about Junauda, and just I knew that she was writing this. I knew it was going to be amazing. I didn't know exactly when it was going to come out, and so I was kind of waiting for this moment. So that's my Junauda story. And then since then, seeing her on the internet and just really loving her vibe and energy, and that's how I come into the ecosystem of this book. So
that is lovely. That is so sweet. It ties in. We were talking about this earlier. Yeah. It ties into the sweetness.
Yes.
Sweetness.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. And there's so much of that. So let's get into it. Okay. So did you like the book as a starter?
Yeah. So yes, I did. As far as how I came into the ecosystem of the book, of course it was recommended by you, because I specifically wanted to read something that had young people in it, the youths, and I wanted something with a little bit of whimsy because for those of you watching, our first book in our book chat discussion was a lot more dark. It was giving very much aliens, very much, that sort of vibe. And so I was like, let's switch it up. Let's see like the sprinkle, like what that would feel like. And so that's how I came to know this book. And so for me, this is what I'll start with.
Okay.
Reading this book made me realize that I wrote it down too in my book. That it sounds cheesy, but I swear I thought I was like the wokest person alive. but love as a ritual.
Yes.
And like this idea that everyone thinks love kind of like, Cupid, like happens to you, when really it's like a ritual, it's a mantra, it's like a spell, it's like something you have to evoke out of yourself and out of other people you're trying to love.
Mm-hmm.
And so that theme kind of ran all through the book, whether it's the love between, a grandmother and her granddaughter, two youths, a romantic type of love, friendship, platonic type of love. That love, the word co-conjurer is used a couple times in this book, and that really also helped me to understand love as like it's a piece of magic that you have to like work with another force to like build up. So that was like my big third eye open moment.
I love it. Like, so for me, I read this I read it before it came out. I got an advanced reader's copy, loved it, ate it up, bought a copy. I'm pretty sure I bought this from Sister Sci-Fi, which is where everybody should buy their books. First of all, Black owned bookstore online and other things. And I read it again yesterday. Like I started and finished it. I started it yesterday and finished it this morning. And it destroyed me. We'll talk about the feelings later. Destroyed. And I just loved it even more the second time. And there's something to be said about just dropping into a book and reading it, in a short period of time. Usually for me, I have longer and more luxurious reads, but this was kind of like a turbo read. I also listened to the audio, and Junauda, who's got a gorgeous voice, she is actually the narrator for Mabel. So
I love that. I love that.
So you hear her voice, her cadence. It's her own poetry, so you hear the poetry the way it's supposed to be read, and it's just like, how Mabel says "I feel it" a lot. She's like, "I feel it." When you hear Junauda say that, I'm just like, oh, that's so that's how it's supposed to be said. There's no other way to say that. I feel it. So I really, really enjoyed it, and this time around, the word that you mentioned, sweetness, like that is what I felt in here. There was so much sweetness, like almost not too much, but just sweetness in places I didn't expect for there to be sweetness. And like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna cry. I very rarely cry.
Let it out.
I rarely cry, but it is already whew. So like I was expecting to feel the sweetness of like the two girls falling in love, and like all of the girls falling in love right here. And I definitely felt that, and felt like the tenderness. And I remembered like how much tenderness like teenagers can have for each other, like, and then like family, and then the grandparents and everything. And I was just like, there's just sweetness. Even like Andre 3000, the cat was sweet. Like everybody was just full of sweetness. And the relationship between Mabel and Afua, right?
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I just was, yeah, it was amazing. Like, in a word, I enjoyed it more this time, and it was so sweet. And then to also read it this week in particular,
Mm-hmm.
right? With like the Chauvin verdicts, with more deaths, with like COVID numbers rising, and just everything that's happening in the world. I was like, I just need sweetness. Like I need sweetness. And reading it, I was like, there's not enough sweetness happening right now, which is why I feel like this book is so, it's medicine. Like, it's medicine. It's so healing, right?
Yeah. There's a line, and I even like underlined it, put a little thing in it.
I want to see your underlining.
Okay, let me get my beauty guru hand out. You can't. It's in pencil, so it's like you can barely see it.
Yeah, what page is that?
It's page 7.
Yeah,
and it's just like the way she words it. Mm-hmm. It's a moment between Queenie, the grandma, and Audrey, the granddaughter, and it says about the grandma. She puts out her spliff, rubs my back, and starts humming a song into my spine. And that was just like, yes.
I underlined that too. Where is it? Yeah, right here. I underlined it as well. And I was like, and I put, I want a granny like her.
Yeah. And so like the whole, and I'd be interested to hear your thoughts, because this is your cultural background, and maybe it's different because you're in Canada and whatnot. But for me, I didn't grow up with grandparents. So I was reading this like, I can only dream.
Yes. Well, I can't talk about this book without getting personal, because there's like so much, it spoke to me so deeply, and spoke to all sort of different, all parts of me too, right? Which I want to sort of share a little bit more about that a bit later. But like, I didn't grow up with my grandparents around me. I grew up with my mother, my father, my cousin, who's kind of like a sister cousin, and then her parents. And I just want to, we're gonna do a shout out, because we need to sort of talk about we're going to talk about that in a minute. But yeah, I grew up with with a small group of people, right? Like, my parents immigrated, right? So they were the first to come to Canada, and I'm like the first in my family to be born here in Canada. So on my father's side, I met my grandmother, my paternal grandmother, several times as a child before she passed away. And then on my mother's side, the Strawn side, and I actually have a Strawn family member who's here. So hi, Cheryl. Thanks for watching. I love you. So like, and she's in Trinidad right now. And on the Strawn side of my family, I found out maybe in my late teens or early 20s that the woman that I knew as my grandmother was actually my great grandmother, because my grandmother passed away, and my great grandmother raised my mother, and so and all the children were raised as siblings. So it never really, you didn't have to differentiate that. But for me, like doing family trees and stuff like that, I realized that, I've never met my maternal grandmother. I had the pleasure of having memory of my great grandmother, which is such a beautiful gift. But I don't have that close relationship. And I have friends who like have stories of their grandmothers being in their life, right? And being alive now, and they can call them and rely on them and stuff like that. And I just don't have that. I don't have that experience. So to hear this like close relationship and be like the mother, like when my mother's acting a little weird, I can go to her mother who will tell me that, don't worry, my daughter's she'll come around, but just like, come, let me heal you for a weekend.
Yeah. It was beautiful. It was beautiful.
Yeah.
And I also really resonated with Queenie in terms of like kind of being her own woman, and like Audrey would call her grandma's land, Queenie land.
Yeah.
And it was just cool to like hear it said like that. Like she knows all the plants that grow on her property. She, you know, has this vibrant room with a purple bedroom and a gold altar. And like it was just cool to imagine a grandma like that.
Yeah. It's it's amazing. Let's I don't know if radio announcer Evelyn is in the house today, but let's just
let me hold on.
Let's just see who's here.
I gotta hit up the YouTube link. Hold up.
Oh, I think you should see it on your screen though, because I think.
Really?
Can you see it now?
Now I can see it.
So the first person, obviously.
YouTube link. Hold up.
Hi, Brittany. I think you should see it on your screen though.
Okay. Why is it? Hold on.
Can you see it now?
Got it. Multiple things are happening at the same time.
It's fine. We're cool.
Shout out to Melanin Eclectic. Oh yeah, coming through with the planners, with the reading planner.
And so thank you, Brittany, for like bringing your life. So also, folks, just let us know where you're here from.
Oh yeah.
So you have Joanna Hardstein. I don't know who D Holland is, but hi, Tatiana.
Hey everybody, hey.
And Emery, hello. I think Emery said she had to come and go, so she was just like, "Hi everybody, bye." And we got Isis from Sister Sci-Fi. Hello.
Yes.
Thank you for having a space where we can buy books and know that you are making money and that it's not going to anyone else. So Sister Sci-Fi, sure, yes.
Internet cousins. Pew, pew, pew.
You know what? I hope you. I love that, and I know that I'm now one of your patrons on Patreon. So like,
thank you.
Yeah. So people obviously become a patron of Evelyn and her brother, and then you can be patron cousins. Yes. Trademark. Which
Patreon cousins.
Which I was happy to see. Hi, Ane. Ane is from the UK. She's also a booktuber. Regina Renee. Hello. Emery. What? Yep. We know you'll catch us later. Thank you. Yes. Black folks from the future. We need to talk about that at that ending because yes, Alessandra, the book is wonderful.
It was wonderful.
Yes, and people saying hi to each other. Hi, Cheryl Ann. Cheryl Ann's my family in Trinidad. So yay. And Micah or Mika. Yes, we were writing in our books, Tati. It's fine. I'm trying to win her over to the dark side, as in the beautiful witchy side of annotations. Yes, I did convert Evelyn to destroy, as in celebrate books for sure. Yes. And let's do a moment of silence for Brittany, who's freaking out because Evelyn has her planner and will probably hold it up.
Let me get my QVC on.
This makes me very, very happy. And yes, people just make sure that you are connected to Melanin Eclectic on all the places, Instagram in particular, and YouTube, so you can find out when the 2022 planner is going to be available. It's going to be lit. So just make sure you are, yes. Yep, you need to get yourself a planner when it's ready. I do love you. I love you so much.
Things can be true.
Yes, they can coexist. Yeah, I did call her out. Okay, so who else? Yay! Okay, now everybody's just loving on each other. Let's see if there's anybody new. Hello, Lockbooktician.
Hello.
Hi, Tommy, who's right there beside me, giggling and trying to work, but she's not going to be able to for the next hour and a half. And Azania Juice Twala, hello. Okay, people are loving on each other. Hello. Oh, thank you. Yes, like and share. Yes, it made it. Yeah, I can see how. So the Lockbooktician Bree has a series on her channel where she is, I think, in conversation with her grandmother about, I think they're reading books together. So you should check out her channel for sure.
Yes.
I know.
Write that down.
Yeah. It's I'll send you a link to it. And yes, your grandmother got you into plants. Yes. Hi, B and Donna.
St. Louis in the house. Hey, hey, St. Louis in the house. Hey.
And
Chicago in the house. I'm trying to go to Chicago. I love Chicago.
Aruba.
Aruba.
Hi, Frank.
Wow, we stand.
Yes. Okay.
Where Brooklyn at? Where Brooklyn at? Hey.
There's so much Brooklyn love too in the story, which is really nice.
Baltimore. I never met somebody from Baltimore I did not like. That.
You're a bit late, but you're from London, UK. That's okay, because you're the servant of love, and that's good.
Yes.
We need more of that. Dundalk, and what's MD?
Maryland?
Is it okay? There's a Dundalk, Ontario too.
Oh.
So
hey, area.
You're studying for an exam and listening. Well, I don't know. I mean, you could try, but this is the book. Okay, so let's talk about the characters.
Yeah, let's talk about
the characters. How did you feel about them? Who were your it's hard to even approach it like who are your favorites, right? Because they're all so rich and textured, but maybe who spoke to you or
yeah, so what's interesting for me when I read books that have teenagers in them is that I feel like I firmly between the teenager and the parent. Yes. You know, so like I'm not 15 and I'm not 45. I'm like equal distance between both of them. So it like whenever I would hear like the Mabel's parents trying, I'd be like, hopefully I try like that. Like, hopefully whatever, future kids do, hopefully I like show up for them in that way. And then when I would read like Mabel's story, Audrey's story, I'd be like, man, I remember what it was like. So it's like I feel all of the characters in a way that I didn't used to when I was younger, obviously. And so I think the person who spoke to me the most, let me think about this. It's a mixture, honestly, between Mabel and her dad.
Okay.
I really enjoyed anytime Mabel was in conversation with her dad. Especially, I mean, I don't want to spoil it for anyone, but at the end, towards the end.
There will be spoilers. Like we're here to. This is for us, okay?
Okay. So when they're in his garden, Black Eden, having this conversation, and Mabel is like, "Hey, Dad, like when I die, I want you to come to the spot in the garden and like remember me." And he just like busts out crying, and I'm just like, oh, it was like such a sweet moment. And when she tells him that like she's queer and he's like, I love you. My dad, kicked my ass all the time. And I told myself I would never do that to my kids. And so just seeing like cycles breaking, and I was really like proud of him in those moments. So yeah. I don't know if that was his dad, her dad, or Audrey's dad. But anyway, the dads.
Was Mabel's dad.
But
yeah. And so for me, just responding to the dads, I really like my father is somebody who had a vision for our entire family. And my mother and my father shared that vision as far as I understand, they shared that vision. And so like, even though my father isn't like an overly emotional or even like kind, like he will share his emotions, but like it's not right. It's not like you know what I mean? Right. They're there and you can find them. But he's not going to like share them right away all the time, right? But he doesn't hide them. You just have to like let him know that you would like to access them. And so like, but so I know fathers, I know the tenderness of like a father's love. I know that. I grew up with that.
Yeah.
And I also grew up with like a father who told me that there were things that he wanted me to like achieve. And like one of the things that I remember him saying to me is like, the most important thing is if you look in the mirror, you have to recognize the person you see in the mirror, and you have to love that person, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like this was before I came out as queer, but that continues to be a consistent refrain from him. So when I read the fathers in the story, I was moved by how much Junauda allowed us to see their tenderness.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. And I'm like, the Black men, whew. So, you know, like seeing the tenderness of Black men was like a really healing and important thing for me.
Yeah.
In this moment, because Black cis men are like under direct attack right now. So like, I think it's just really powerful to be able to see that. And to see like both Mabel and Audrey struggle with their fathers as well, right? And then being able to see the parents, right, even like figure it out, like Audrey's parents. Like I loved it when Audrey's dad, when Audrey was finally like, can you tell me what happened with you and mom? Like, did you guys love each other? Why did you leave us? And what's happening now? And his ability to say like, this is what happened and it was imperfect. We tried our best. I love and respect your mother, but like I couldn't have you be untethered. I couldn't have my daughter be untethered. So you had to be there and I had to be here. And I'm so happy that I now have the opportunity when I'm ready too. Cause he's like, I wasn't ready to be a dad, you know, but I did my best, but now I get an opportunity to like see you through this really important part, you know, time in your life.
Yeah.
And Mabel's dad, similarly, like we see, I think more of him, but like hearing him just kind of be like, look, you need to know about the struggles of our generation, and you need to read the books. You need to understand, like, I want you to be self-sufficient. I want you to be able to grow things. And, you know, like, it was just really, like, I agree, like, the relationships with fathers are so important. So as someone who reads, like, a lot of this stuff, like, I see a lot of mother-daughter stories. I don't see any non-binary parents yet. And that's something we need to see in the canon. But father-daughter stories, cis heterosexual fathers and queer daughter stories, I'm not.
And to that point, like, I feel like a lot of times when it's, whether it's books or television shows or movies, like, we're just supposed to understand their internal change. But what I appreciated about this story is that the fathers were saying it, articulating it verbally with their words. It was a conversation. It wasn't like, you know, we're all good now. It's like, no, they would actually explain it. And I feel like because that's something, you know, my dad is a great guy, you know, but generally man of few words, or, you know, it's that the dads in this book talked so much. And I was like, do people's dads be speaking like this much? And so that was just interesting to notice. Like, the Audrey and Mabel never had to really guess what their parents were thinking. It was cool to just see their parents say it to their face and like apologize and all these things that, like, I didn't get.
And you know, and there was a part of it that I was like, oh right, this is why some of us might call this fantasy. Right? Because it is like, this is, you know, to be, and what would these cis heterosexual Black men, what would they have had to have done and undone in terms of all the messaging that they get around masculinity? What would they have had to do in order to create that kind of space to be there for their daughters in that way? you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I want to talk about the mothers, the grandmothers, and the daughters, and that magical and spiritual legacy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I think there were things about the mothers and the grandmothers here, and how they tried to protect, how they tried to balance, like creating space and also like holding close, sometimes too close, like what they tried to do. So I'm just wondering about that, in particular Audrey's mother. And do you what do you make of her mom? Let's just start there generally.
Yeah, I mean, Audrey's mom is very fascinating to me because of who her mom is. Her mom is Queenie. She's this like woman of the world, of the earth. Um, and it's like what happened there? And it's like we know that Queenie was a teen mom or like maybe 20 years old. We know that Queenie left Trinidad to go to New York, left the baby there with her parents, um, Audrey's mom's grandparents. And so we know that maybe there was something there that happened, that disconnect. But I was really surprised that you could have a mom that was so free and be so not free. And so if there was anything I wanted to know more about, it would be about their relationship, Queenie and her daughter, who ended up being Audrey's mom. Yeah.
And Rupert, who we only get a little bit of, and I'm fine with that.
Period.
So this whole like idea of religious stepfather coming in, becoming the head of the household, and then like participating in the violence, right? Again, the daughter, and supporting that violence. And like for me, like that whole scene where Junauda takes us to this like sweet moment between Neri, and I have to say, it was really nice to see a name that looked like mine.
Yeah.
Without one letter. It was really that in a book. And so, but to see her, like to see Audrey and Neri in, on the beach, having this beautiful moment, consensual, loving, wild, beautiful, passionate. And then for Junauda to not allow us to look away from the violence and the brutality of not only homophobia, but homophobia steeped in religion, right?
Yeah.
And to see that the righteous violence of that moment, and the brutality of it, I forgot how brutal it was. And and I appreciated, right? I think we needed to experience that and to see that. And anybody who has had to come out in a religious family and in a Caribbean family, knows, regardless of whether the experience was good or bad, because I don't believe that coming out in a Caribbean religious family always means that it's going to be a negative experience.
Right.
But the fear that it will be must be real for most queer folks who are, have Caribbean families. And for me, I remember when I came out to my came out not to my queer parents. I remember Toby's like Freudian slip of the capacity, but like for me, I remember when I came out to my parents and how afraid, and I didn't grow up around, like I wasn't physically abused as a child, and I'm an only child, and I remember the day. I remember what it was like to sit on the couch, in our living room, and to like find the words to explain to my mother and my father that like I love women. No, like not like that, like this, like,
Mm-hmm.
this. Like that. And to have to like say it a couple times, and to have and then to have fear and not knowing if like the people in front of me who have like loved me for all of this time will still love me in like 7 minutes after I get this word out, right?
Yeah.
And it was a very difficult experience for me. And I was brought there, even though my experience wasn't the same as Audrey's, but the shock of it, and the loneliness that a person can feel when their world of like safety is immediately gone, right? That is what she took me to in that moment.
And I really appreciate that. I think it's common. Okay, as far as stories go, I think we're starting to see more and more queer stories. Sure. But unfortunately, they always tend to have a layer of betrayal. And what I appreciated about that particular scene in the book is that Neri like tried to stop it. It wasn't like a get off me, ew, what's happening? It was like, no, like she stood up and was like, don't hit her. Like, let me stand in between this. And so that was also really, it was great to see, and to see that on top of the trauma that they were both experiencing, they were still together and like unified in that, if that makes any sense.
Oh my God, it makes all of the sense. And I think that again, like the sweetness of this, right? That even in that moment, there's sweetness. Even in the car, as Mama says, like, both of you get your ass in the car, right? You know, there was sweetness there. And I just, you know, who knows what people experience, right? Like we don't. But the cool thing about writing a book is you get to world build. And like Junauda was like, I'm going to take you here. I'm going to take you to this brutal moment. And in this moment, I'm going to show you how even in this moment, and she does this all throughout, even in this moment, oh my God, there's sweetness. Can you pass me a tissue, please? Like, there's so many moments of sweetness, like there, and then even in incarceration, there can be sweetness. Even in displacement, there can be sweetness. Even in a terminal illness, there can be sweetness, right? Like there can be sweetness everywhere, and we can create that, and girls can create that
because love is a ritual.
Thank you.
Thank you.
She's like, here's another one for what you're gonna need in 5 minutes. And
even into that point, even seeing like what's her name,
Jazzy,
even when Audrey like busts out crying in the car and they're like driving to school, and Jazzy like stops driving and it's like, you can cry, you don't have to talk about it, just keep crying. And she like hugs her, and this is someone she's known for like a semester of school, you know, of high school. And so it was just like you said, to see girls being able to love each other in all these different ways. Is so healing. It's definitely healing.
And I just also feel like that's not unusual, right? Like that I have felt the love of like family members and friends who are like, I don't fully understand what you are going through, but I love you in that. It's like, and I love you in that. I will hold you in that. I'm not going to call your feelings drama. I'm not going to, right? Like, I'm not going to belittle you. I'm not going to try and force you to make sense of things. I'm just going to be here. And you can do that at 15, right? That all throughout. Like, it's not hard to do. Let's talk about, you talked about like love as ritual and love as magic. let's just talk about, can we talk about magic? Like just magic. And for those of you who are in the chat, there are 46 of you. It's really nice to see you all here. You know, what, if you want to put in the chat, if you read the book, share with us some of those moments of sweetness that you remember. You're free to put in page numbers, and we'll talk about as many of them as we can. So Evelyn, like, what did you think of all the different kinds of magic? Because it wasn't just Queenie, right?
Yeah, I feel like the coolest magic was so when after Mabel would have her radiation, her chemo, afterwards, Audrey would come over and they would have Dreamo. They would she would do her thing. And I loved how Audrey never knew if it was working. She was just like, I'm going to show up. I'm going to give you these, green smoothies. I'm going to lay here with you, make you comfortable, ask you about the dreams you're having, so that your body doesn't have to, while your body is ravaged by this treatment, your body can also, your mind and your soul can be focused on other things. Yeah. And I thought the coolest magic was that Mabel ended up having dreams as Audrey's grandma. And that's how we come to know so much about Queenie, through Mabel's dreams. And that was, to me, I'm not normally someone who tries to see where a book is going anyway. So whenever I read, I'm completely open, but I definitely did not see that coming. To see Mabel be the one to have those dreams and learn about her girlfriend's queer grandma and her time as a teenager and a youth. That was magical, for lack of a better word.
I loved that. And I feel like I'm sharing a lot about myself in this, but I feel like I have to, because that's the only way that I can talk about this book. And it's so rare. It's so rare to read a book where so much, so many different parts of my personal identity are present. And so I'm a dream worker, right? I work with dreams. I did not know that. Nobody knows. I don't talk about it, right? Tomi's like, I know it, right? So I'm a dream worker. I also practice the intuitive arts. I will leave it there. But that's real. That stuff is real. And what I loved about that was, yes, as you say, the surrender, Mabel being willing to surrender to something that she fully didn't understand and something that she was kind of laughing at. But it was like, oh my gosh, this is a thing that's happening for real, for real. It's number one. The second piece is that, remember when Queenie was talking to Audrey and she said, you are going to develop your own magic. You have to decide what's going to work for you. Right. So Queenie can low-key fly. She dances and then she flies. Right. And she's like, maybe you'll be doing that too, but you'll find something else, something that works for you. Right. And it's going to be your own kind of magic. Right. When she calls Queenie and says, look, Mabel's dying, fix her. And then she calls, and I do want to talk about, what is the cousin, starts with an E.
Episode.
We need to talk about episode. But she's like, I need somebody who knows about magic to help me help her. And Queenie's like, have you even thrown your stones? Do it, right? And then she just effortlessly kind of creates this experience that if you're somebody who practices magic and somebody who practices dream work, what she did was very sophisticated dream work, right? And so for me to recognize that in a book and then be able to see a teenager do it intuitively and to also be playful with it, I'm gonna rhyme, it's gonna rhyme, right? Because right? that was so beautiful. And I like how Junauda allowed us to explore the different kinds of magic.
Yeah.
So there was like, yes, if you needed the big, we can fly,
Yeah.
we can shapeshift. If you needed that, you got that, right? But then there was also episodes partner with their like I tell food, like, this food is magical. We know that, right?
Yeah.
That's why we don't age, right? we know that works. And then also the earth magic of Mabel's dad in Black Eden.
Yes.
And it's funny, my friend Brittany Mellon Eclectic, she has a garden that she's called Black Eden. And like just to think about what Black Eden is supposed to be, like, there's like that magic. And then just like even Mabel's mom, who we don't get to know that much.
Right.
But her like dancing around in her pom-pom shorts and then like getting on her bike with her, like, I don't know how old the brother
I think he's like 5. I don't know.
Yeah, 5. Going to the beach in her little like tight up shorts and like being like, I'm free, just be free, right? cook for me and be free, and I'm gonna, like that also, that freedom also being magical.
Yeah.
There.
Let me see if I said anything about magic.
Because I remember you wanted like bling, like you wanted like
yeah. So this is something that I wrote because going into the book and even reading like the synopsis, I thought it was going to be something totally different than it ended up being. I thought it was going to be, I thought the forest would play a bigger role. I don't know why I thought that.
Yeah.
But when it came to magic, I thought it was going to be Audrey, Mabel in the forest, magic happening. But that's not what it ended up being. It ended up being a lot more subtle, a lot more, this is part of everyone's everyday life, which I appreciated. And this is what I wrote. It's not necessarily a special power reserved for the chosen ones. You can choose it. And if you choose it, then it'll work. So
read that again.
Yeah. So it's not necessarily a special power reserved for the chosen ones. You can choose it. And
that is, you're so great. You're so fucking great. That is so important. And one of the things, like one of the features of Black magical realism is really like rooted in Latinx communities, but Black like low fantasy, maybe, right? Like more mundane magical fantasy in the moment. That is one of the unique features of it, and also feminist writing as well, and actually like anti-colonial writing, anti-capitalist writing, which is that you don't have to go to one person who has the magic to get access to the magic, right? Like it is here. It's not meant to be bought or sold or any of those kinds of things, but it's meant to be cultivated and shared. And that whole the one narrative, right? No matter who the one is, right? The one, that narrative takes us away from, I think, what is a very fundamental truth is that like we all know this, right? We know this. And like I think about my own, like my own ritual practices, like most of my practice is very, very solitary. And I think the most powerful work that we do is when we're in that moment of solitude and we're like, oh, right, I need to drink water right now. Oh, I need a bath right now. Oh, I'm sad. I need to walk in the park. I need to sit by a tree. I need to listen to a river, right? I need to not eat this for a while, or I need to call this person or listen to that music or dance and sweat or whatever, make love, whatever it is that people do, cook, right? Like that's what's going to soothe my soul right now. And I feel like a lot of times, we are taught that you can't be the authority of your own spiritual practice. And what's more, if you are, that's evil, or
Yes.
that's a problem. You can't control that.
Mm-hmm.
You should deny it and
Mm-hmm.
go to this person to be able to guide
Yeah.
to guide you. And I feel like what Queenie does in this is she shows us through her character that there is so much beauty in like sharing that vulnerability and that joy, and giving yourself permission to celebrate that. And
Yeah.
I saw that, like, that encounter between her and the Brazilian person in, was it in New York?
In New York.
He's there, like that whole like knock knock knock, that smells good, who are you? Because a person who can make something that smells that good needs to be somebody I know. Can I have some food?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
And and Queenie being like, I don't know what's really happening here, but you cute, so yes.
I think I like that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's so, I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. And this isn't to say that you don't need it, it's not to say that the one, we need to do away with the one, because I do believe that there are people who have talent, are talented leaders. And I know
Mm-hmm.
like Adrienne Marie Brown talks about this in Emergent Strategy, and she's like, she's like, I'm a person with charisma. I know that that's a talent that I have, and that I have to use it appropriately. But I do know that people are drawn to me because I'm charismatic, and that is a magic. And that's just like any other magic. You're careful with that.
Yes. Yeah.
So she also teaches us how to be the one, right?
Yeah.
Side note, I love Queenie's all of Queenie's ex-lovers and how they're like still in her life doing.
She still got it.
Yeah.
She still got it.
But she's like, I don't have to pay for honey.
It's free.
Oh, yes, Queenie.
Another magic that I realized was magic. On page 109, at the end, when Audrey is kind of like, she feels very like unsafe and sad and just broken. And so she just starts saying to herself, I love you, I love you, I love this body. She's trying to like ground, she's trying to ground herself.
Yes.
It's an anti-anxiety practice. It's 101. What's something you can hear? What's something you can smell? Like, we all know this. And so, but at the end, when she said, I say things to myself like I'm a sweet grandma, like I'm my own ancestor. And then I put the little note and said, oh, that's reparenting. Like, we kind of, clinicalized it and made it in psychology vocabulary, but it is a type of magic to be your own parent and to redo and undo damage. So I thought that was also really, because I be needing that too. I be needing that magic.
And this is why I love annotating, because it's nice after the fact to be like, yeah, I underlined that myself, and I wrote self-love. And then I also like put this sticker because I wanted to remind myself to come back and write something there.
Oh, yeah.
And I love that you liked it too. So I'm writing in blue for you.
Yes.
Like, this is where me and Evelyn both kind of thing, right? And yeah, that's so beautiful. Can we talk about the magic of teenage friendship and protest and transformation?
Yes.
Speak on it.
Just like this feeling of like anything is actually possible. And I mean, speaking of magic, like that has to be an ingredient. Like, it won't work if you're like halfway thinking like this shit isn't real.
Yeah.
But that kind of, it's not even optimism. It's more like, yeah, this is the way it should be. Like, we're gonna stage a walkout. You're gonna get what you want because we get what we want. And that's very that's very magical. That's very bold. It's very kind of in charge of your own present and future, which is, the world be trying to break you down after a while. So it was nice to see like these 15, 16-year-olds banding together to support their friend without so much as like two meetings. You know what I mean? Like it was just like casually said, like, hey, you want to do a walkout? And then people walked out. Yeah.
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 And the strategically placed adults who chose to be waymakers, right? And so we, it was beautiful that Junauda allowed us, through Audrey's experience of going into a new school, to see at an early point in the book where her allies could potentially be, right? So where, the teachers who, like, she showed us the racist teacher, and then, she showed us how strategic Mabel was in making sure that Audrey would go to the right classes, right? And go to the teachers who were, just, with it and kind of nerdy, but also just like, I take my role as a teacher and a guide of teenagers very seriously, right? And I want my classroom to be a healing space. Like that scene, like I spend a lot of time thinking about schools and the education system. And I spend a lot of time thinking about what it ought to be, right?
Yeah.
And what it needs to be, especially right now. And another magic, like that moment where, the teachers hold, I don't know if it's Ursa and Mabe and Audrey, but like they hold them back from class. And then the parents come into the classroom, the teacher's there, and they're like, okay, we need to talk to you about Mabel, right?
Yeah.
We need to talk to you about Mabel. Here's what she needs. Here's what's going on. And the fact, what I didn't pick up the first time I read the book was this took place in a classroom, right? So what would have needed to happen, if you think about like all of the layers of bureaucracy that happen in schools and school boards, what needed to happen for them to get permission to come into in 2021, right? Come into a parents saying, we need to create a safe space for Mabel, who hasn't even been coming to class. We need the teacher in on it. We need the principal to support this, this discussion. We need to get her friends. We need to create like comfort around her. And I was like, can I imagine that happening today? Right?
Yeah.
Would that have even happened at my school growing up? And I was like, all of the things, all of the people who had to be kind and loving and, caring for this girl, right? And then her friends. Like that was such a beautiful moment as well,
And intentional. Like it doesn't happen by accident. Yeah.
Yeah. I can see 1,000 reasons why something wouldn't happen. Well, you can't have this kind of discussion in class.
Got to sign in. And
like all of that stuff. And how long is it going to take? And liability and like all of that stuff is like, no. What she needs right now is to be held in sweetness, and you're an institution and you can do that for her. And that's not even a thing. And it's just effortless. And there's so many ways that Junauda again, like injects sweetness into these really sort of mundane systems. Like another interesting thing that I saw was when Afua has 6 hours on Coney Island, right? So even like the gentleness within which that happened, despite the violence of the prison industrial complex that we're exposed to, right? Yeah. Like the fact that everybody, like Mabel's family, knew that it was important for Audrey to be there and to be with her and to give her space, the two of them space to be together. And then Audrey and Mabel understanding that like Afua would need to be with his family, right? And then Afua's mother saying to Mabel, like, I haven't seen my son like this, and I haven't seen my son, and thank you for this moment. And yes, he's in handcuffs, and yes, there are police officers all around, and all of this is happening. And that cotton candy, like reference, like all of that. And then to have Junauda say, which she didn't have to, but she then says, like, the prison president or whatever, like the head of the prison was there, and she said he looked kind, right? And I was just like, I don't know how I feel about well, I do know how I feel. I have mixed feelings
Mhm.
about having to consider a kind man who is responsible for such like violence, right?
Yeah.
Or is an agent in a system of violence, right? And I think, you know, I we all find ourselves at times being agents in systems of violence, and again, and then still sweetness there, like
Still.
everywhere.
Yeah. And that's what makes it so that's what makes it so bold. It's kind of like the boldness of the teenagers of like, this is what I want. This is the world we're gonna have.
Yeah.
And then here you go.
Mm-hmm.
So
There, let's, before we move on from like sweetness and magic, let's see what people have to say. So
yes.
Joanna, so the question was like, give us your moments of sweetness from the book. So Joanna headed it off with the Dreamo treatments, right when you were talking about them. And yes, I loved the sweetness in the scenes when the girls all stayed in the house on the lake. Let's talk about it.
I forgot about that. Thank you, Joanna.
Let's talk about it. Go ahead.
So it was a vibe. It was a mood. It was like everyone just loves each other and like wants to experience life together. And in the midst of such it can be depressing. You know, Mabel has a terminal illness. It took a lot for her parents to be like, okay, she can go, but she's weak, like physically weak. But for them to turn it into just like a fun in only the way girls can have fun, you know? It's like, it's playful, it's also sensual, it's also delightful and sweet. I don't know, it was just very like, it was very real. I don't even know how else to describe it. It was very real.
So Junauda tells a story, and I don't know, because I've watched a bunch of different interviews with her. And for folks in the chats, if you haven't watched an interview with Junauda, please do, because it'll just add a whole other layer to this. Because in addition to like Junauda being the author of this book, she's also a poet. She is also, you know, somebody who practices the intuitive art. She makes amazing t-shirts. She's also an abolitionist. I think her aunt like has a Trinidadian cooking business in Minnesota. And so that people lining up, you know, in New York, that scene where people are lining up to get doubles and like that, I think that Junauda helps her aunt, and they like make Trini food in Minnesota. So that's probably something that like that post-COVID, right? But anyway, so like in an interview with Junauda, I think she describes a situation where she was invited to do a school talk about the book. So she like shows up and she's ready to field questions from the teenagers, and all they want to do is talk about sex. Like all the questions were about like sex and sensualness and whatever, which obviously like she's totally comfortable talking about. But she said in the interview, she was taken off guard. She was expecting like some variety in the questions, but like all of them wanted to talk about this. And the cottage, I call it the cottage scene, like what I loved about when they're, you know, when they're in the hot tub, all of them, and then they go from there and they put on their pajamas and like, let's twerk, right? And it's like, and then let's like make out, right? And more. And just like, you know, she showed us, right? She showed us sensual, sexual connection between girls in a safe way. And also like Audrey's tenderness toward Mabel. And what I loved about that too, and I'm trying to do more work around like my own internalized ableism, but Audrey's tender and boundary respecting interaction with Mabel's body, Mabel's dying, right? And just like these moments where it's like, yeah, they were walking hand in hand, and then, you know, before they go into the water on Coney Island, Audrey rolls up Mabel's, pants, or she like helps roll, Mabel over to the side, or make sure Mabel's comfortable, and then like tops her. Right? It's just like these moments of like, I'm taking care of you. I'm also doing you. And that's a thing. Like, that's a thing. This is how our bodies are engaging together.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen that. I've seen that with adults in Black SFF, but I haven't seen that with teenagers. And there are more and more stories of like sensual connections between Black queer youth. And I'm like, I wish I had stories like this when I was younger, right?
Yeah.
To at least know that this can happen safely at this age, as opposed to whatever stories being available are stories of harm, fear, trauma, right? Like this can be sweet too, right? So I just shout out for people with cottages who let teenagers run them for a weekend. Well, I was talking to Tommy about this earlier today, because I was like, right after that scene, I just started to bawl. Like I wept today. Like I actually like closed the book, walked over to Tommy, and like crawled under the covers and like wept. Right. And one of the reasons why I was like sobbing and weeping was like, there's just so much going on in the world, and I needed this scene, and I'm sad, and I didn't realize until I read this, like how much we need that much, right? So that was just a really amazing moment that we were given.
Yeah. And it felt like, it's weird to be nostalgic for something that never happened in your personal life. But I was just like, yeah, those were the days. And I was like, that was never my experience. But it was presented and written in such a, we have these hashtags like Black Boy Joy, Black Girl, Magic. And it was like, that's what that was. It was like, let's just chill. Nobody's bothering us. Our parents are making this happen, so they support us. It was just very fun. And like like you were saying, like in a world it's not fucking fun. This was very needed. It was very, very needed.
And Junauda gave us a young queer Black Muslim girl.
She did.
She did with a hijab and like,
Did she play basketball?
Yeah, right? And I was just like, come on, Ursa. And then that moment between Ursa and Mabel where she's kind of like, I'm sorry, I didn't know like how to connect with you and stuff, but because I don't know, but I'm here, and let's now. And Mabel being like, yeah, no, I totally get it. And thank you for the soft Tyrell character who's like, who Mabel's like, hey, I'm not really feeling him in that way. But when her dad was like, you only smile when Tyrell bought you food. You only lit up like I know you're in love with Audrey because you never lit up like that with Tyrell unless he brought you food. Right? And just like, I remember like growing up and just like discovering certain feelings for the first time. And certainly like that doesn't end, right? Like we're always discovering things for ourselves and we change, right? But I think you probably as a teenager get more moments where you're just like, whoa, I feel this, and whoa, I feel that, as opposed to when you're an adult. And just like seeing Mabel be okay with herself and just be like, I don't know what, like I didn't feel this with Tyrell, but I felt this with Audrey, and I'm not going to question that. I might not have words for it, but like I want more of this and less of that, right?
Yeah, and he's still her friend. It's not like, oh, I'm done with you. It's like, no, I'm still a part of your life.
Yeah. And like, even there were so many moments where the characters could have been jealous, but they weren't. Like when Queenie is in that club in Brooklyn, so in the with, I don't know the Brazilian person's name, but they're to get Mahara, something like that. So they're together. And then this like tall statuesque, we find out that it's Whitney, which was like, we need to talk about Whitney Houston in a second. Oh, yeah. Okay. So she comes in and she sings and she's beautiful and whatever. And Queenie's looking at her and notices that her date is looking at her. Mm-hmm. And everybody else is looking at her. And she's like, yeah, obviously we're all looking at her. She's gorgeous. She's sexy. She's got pipes. She's great. And again, Mabel doesn't express jealousy over Tyrell having a girlfriend.
Yeah.
Or, you know, like she's like, oh, I feel a type of way, but I'm ultimately cool. Mm-hmm. And even like I was expecting Audrey to feel conflicted for having, like, when she gets the letter from Mary.
Yes.
I was expecting like a paragraph where it's like, I feel guilt and torn because I love Neri, but I also love Mabel. Yeah. And it just wasn't there. It was just like, I miss Neri. And then at one point, I wish we could all.
Yeah. She was like, I wish we could all be together.
Yeah.
In this, like, universe.
Yeah. And I was just like, thank you, Junauda. Like,
that was, yeah.
Yeah. What do you think?
That was so beautiful. And it was so like, yeah, in a world where there's inner turmoil and inner conflict, I really appreciated that Junauda removed so much inner conflict. Like, we're not going to have conflict about that. We're not going to have inner turmoil about that.
Yeah.
You were in love with two people. You wish they were both here. And that's that.
Yeah. Let's see what other, okay. We're going to do time check. I mean, we have 2 hours for this. I feel like we can. Yeah. Okay. So Gabriella, hello. One of my favorite moments of sweetness was when Mabel and her dad were in Black Eden together and he starts talking about his memories of when she was a baby and then the sweet coming out scene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I also appreciated how Mabel's parents, it's like the tale of two parents, two sets of parents, right?
Right?
You have Mabel's parents who like drive her to the concert of like this queer, cool ass band, and they're just in the background getting drunk with all the other parents and like, go live your life. And yeah, Mabel's dad gets pronouns wrong, but not on purpose. He corrects himself afterwards. And it's just like, it doesn't have to be a struggle in a way that maybe it was a struggle with Audrey's family, mother. And I just appreciated seeing that, like, it can be chill. Like, this is a world in which it's chill.
Yeah.
And even the mom just joking with the dad, like, you're not hip to this generation. You better get hip. It's not the 90s.
Hurry up. Yeah. You know, and then him being able to say, like, I do have a point of reference for this. Back in the day, we called these people butch, right? Yeah. So it's not like I'm totally out of it. Yeah. I'm just trying to update my language. I'm not as ignorant as y'all trying to feel, but also sorry. You know, and I loved that scene. And the girl who was dancing with Mabel at the concert, she just like shows up with her, what was it, lavender afro and like white boots smelling like some kind of oil and a little bit of alcohol on her breath, even though she had an X on her hand to say that she couldn't drink. Yeah. And just like and Mabel being like, I did my best, like, two-step.
Just like her daddy. Just like her daddy.
Oh, that was beautiful. And I think, you know, it's funny. Like, Tommy, I'm just going to tell a story about being aunties at the club. Is that okay for a second? So Tommy and I just need to do a little like check here, boundary check. Tommy and I a couple of summers ago now went to this club moment. It was like this Black queer club in Toronto, or like, you know, when they take over a restaurant for a day.
Yeah.
And so we hadn't been out for a little while because life and whatever. And we roll up and we are clearly the aunties. I think most people were in their 20s. Yeah. Right. And so, like, you know, I'm dressed up, look nice. She's dressed up. She looked cute, whatever. And we sat down and it was like, we're the aunties in the club. Like, people were like it didn't stop people from rolling up on us, right? But together, but we were like clearly the aunties in the club, and I think about creating space, right? Having spaces for queer young people or young people, period, to be around their parents, right? And to like be able to flirt and dance and like to have that kind of space. And I hope that like for me, that I can be that for younger queer people, whether they come out of my body or whether they are part of the community too, because, you know, it was just so healing. So that was like that was really great. Like all those beautiful parental moments. And if you notice in the acknowledgements, Junauda talks about like the people in her chosen family and her blood family who like created spaces for her to experience magic, to experience like sweetness. And she herself is a parent, her and her wife. And that's, you see that tenderness there. Like it was all so beautifully done. So Gabriella gives us, thank you for the page reference, 281, 285. Let's just consult our sources here. Yes. Yeah. So Gabriella, this is my 281 here, and I'm like, oh, and I've got that, that part underlined. I also have like a sticker, and I'm just like, I need to write more about that scene. Yes. And we got Teddy Pendergrass. Oh, we need to talk about the music in the book. Stevie Wonder's As.
Gorgeous.
Let's talk about the music.
First of all, loved how there was a playlist in the back.
Yes.
Loved that.
I have to check on Spotify to see if it actually...
There is one. Yeah.
There is one. Okay. Yeah. I thought so. So. Okay.
Yeah, as far as the music, kind of melding into our conversation about Whitney Houston and just like the ability for music to transport you to a place that you want to be or a person you want to be with is just so... We all do it, you know? We all have those songs we listen to and we're like, yep, that's me. Oh, yeah, I really like that.
So like what kind of songs, like what songs that aren't on the playlist were in your mind as you were reading, or artists?
Well, when I looked up if the Black Lovers were real, and they're not, I believe. Are they?
I don't know, but I remember hearing her say that they were based off of like an act. I think she said that they were based off of an actual like group.
Right. And so what I ended up visualizing in my head is the internet.
Yes.
So those crazy kids. Yeah. So I was visualizing Sid and like how Sid has such like a kind of masculine presence, but a super sweet voice.
Yes.
Just like player-esque.
Yes.
And so I would listen to a lot of the internet and a lot of Sid. I would, let me open my Spotify. I have it right here. Hold on. I also listened to, do you listen to Lucky Day?
So my music, I probably won't know anybody who you're talking about. Let's just be transparent about that, because like I listen to a lot of older stuff.
Okay.
Like I listen to music from the What do I listen to, Tommy? Music from the 90s. I listen to salsa and music from the 80s and 90s. And like dubstep. I listen to dubstep. Like right now, or at least in the past couple of years, I've been consuming like nostalgic music. So I don't like keep up. I only keep up with a few artists like Laura Mvula, right?
Okay.
So I keep up with Laura Mvula because she's such an amazing artist, and she's like beautiful and just wonderful. Asha.
Oh yeah.
Artist. So I like her. And the only artist who I can name who I follow and want to hear everything that they do is B. Steadwell. And
whoa, throwback. She's like OG YouTube almost. Yeah.
yeah. And I just think that B is like amazing. Amazing. And I hear B's work like in this song. But then other than that, I just follow, like right now I'm really interested in like the progression of Lil Nas X and like you know, his playfulness around sexual orientation in hip hop. So like those are people. So but keep on asking me. I'm just letting you know that I don't know who you're talking about. Kind of.
Yeah, so I love the internet. Steve Lacy. He has some interesting music, you know, about his sexuality. And he's very much like a pretty boy. All the girls love him, all the boys love him. He has that energy. Who else? And in terms of like poetry, I was listening to, do you know Hiatus?
I don't.
Coyote. So the lead singer, her name is Napalm. She's from Australia, and her music is truly like poetry. Like she's just singing a poem. And sometimes I think Moses Sumney does her background vocals, and he's just whoo. So anyway, if anyone feels what I'm saying, those are the people that I kind of was listening to and thinking about as I was reading the book. Very smooth, very tender and luxurious, but also a little bit of like playerness.
I'm attracted to music like when I think about music that is queer adjacent, you know, and more like in the generation. I like to listen to music that I grew up with through my current ears, right? So like I love Teddy Pendergrass, I love Stevie Wonder, and I love Luther Vandross, and I listen to Patty and Aretha and Whitney, and then Tracy Chapman, Michelle Ndegeocello, and Leanne La Havas. You know, like I mean, I'm not obviously getting more contemporary, but like those artists, you know, give me like one voice and a guitar and I'm done, right? Just I'm just done. So you know, after Whitney passed, we started hearing more stories about Robin, and in particular, and I learned this through Tomi, like in particular, Whitney's mother was very cruel to Robin post death, and I remember like mourning that and I've experienced the sort of erasure of queerness in Black artists and Black people once they pass. Like there's something that happens when somebody dies that like, you know, families and communities start like recreating the person in the image, in their own image, right? As opposed to who the person actually was. And that ends up being like that identity ends up being contested territory after somebody dies and can't speak for themselves. And so like this book was so much a love letter to Whitney Houston and Robin, and you know, just being able to see Mabel like dream about Whitney and Robin and just being like, I can see myself being like Robin, right? Like I can
like cool, calm, collected, little shy, you know.
And so that was beautiful. You love the scenes of the lake together, especially the dancing. Yes, lots of dancing. I don't know. Bree,
we don't know.
We'll say that for the replay. Oh yes, the anxiety practicing. Yes, and Bree's a therapist, so like Bree does this stuff in life. Hello, Quita Moon. Our love from South Florida. Hello, and Mahal. Thank you for her name. Or their name. I don't know their pronouns, but yes, thank you. Hey from Sweden. You know what? I loved the story with Mahal, how like there was like a fade to black moment where we see them eating together and, sitting together and whatever. And then next thing you know, like Queenie is in Mahal's apartment, sitting on the windowsill in her underwear on her birthday. Yeah. And I was like, okay, this is all coming together. That makes sense. Hello, Sherry. Sherry, she's a booktuber. Her channel is Obsidian Texts and Tangents, and also a friend who I love very much. So yes, hello, and yes, Servant of Love feels you for something. So yeah, okay. So what? Okay, so now I wanted, before we kind of decide where we want to go with the conversation, what, this is kind of a more maybe controversial take on this book that has come up. So how do I approach this? I guess as a question. So it's about authenticity and identity and being a part of the diaspora, right?
Yeah.
And so one of the criticisms of this book is that part of it is written in dialect, that Junauda decided to write the book in dialect. And of course, Junauda is like a Trinidadian American, born in the US, I think, but definitely like raised and spent most of her life in the US. And I do know that she did her research and, went to Trinidad while she was writing her book, and that she spent time. She even talks about that in the acknowledgments, like people in her family and friends who took her around and, exposed her to different parts of Trinidad, in addition to like her growing up with her relatives from Trinidad and so on. But one of the criticisms of the voice in the story is that it is presented as like an authentic Trinidadian voice, but there are things about the dialect and things about the portrayals of Trinidad that are inaccurate. Now, I definitely know like where I sit on the side of that debate, which is that if you are born and raised in a diasporic community and you have not spent any time in like the place of, of the birth of your parents, right? You're not going to have access to like the dialect is not going to come through you the way it would had you been raised in this place, right? So it's going to be imperfect. And also if authors of the diasporas cannot, if they have to be 100% authentic, right? What does that actually mean? Like, because I know for me, if I tried to speak in a Trinidadian accent, as Tommy will tell you, I will not sound like somebody from Trinidad. I will sound like somebody from Toronto who might be Trinidadian adjacent, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to sound like a Trini in that particular way. And so, but that's the pain and promise of being a daughter of the diaspora, right? Like you have a hybrid identity, you are grasping, right? You're grasping at pieces of a culture to find that connection. And one of the things that I think that was so beautiful about this book is that Junauda boldly and courageously did something that I don't think a lot of diasporic writers would do, which is to write in dialect, knowing, I think, that she would receive criticism from people who are just like, we don't talk like that. This is not how our communities work. Like, this is an exaggeration and that's inaccurate, right? And maybe that's true. Maybe there are inaccurate portrayals of Trinidad in this book, but I do think that it is authentic for somebody of the diaspora to write through their perceptions, right? At the same time, when I have seen that in other books, I've been critical of it. So I'm not sure if, like, I'm not sure. I can think of a few books that I'm not going to name right now, but I don't know. Maybe it's because I have a positive bias towards like Junauda and Black queer Trinidadian experience, or maybe I've just matured. But I do think that there has to be a space where people from the diaspora can talk about, their homeland, right? Even if it's not the land that they grew up on, because if there's no space for that, then that means that they can only write about the US or Canada or whatnot. And it's such a place of pain, right?
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering what you know, like you're a child of a diaspora. So tell me about that.
It's man, I don't know if this is okay to say, but in my experience and in my life as being a daughter of the diaspora, there comes a point where you just say, I don't actually care. Like, I don't. And sometimes I have to check myself and be like, is that my imperialism showing? Like, what is that?
Yeah.
Or is that me refusing to be gatekept from my own people? So I do have to, it's a line, you got to toe that line between being the steadfast bulldozing American and just saying no, like I'm laying claim to this.
Yeah.
Because the other side of that is if we never referenced our homeland, that's also a problem, right? So it's this weird dance between reference it enough, don't reference it too much because you're not from here. And so that is a thing that I feel like a lot of first gen kids, immigrant kids, third culture kids have to figure out. And a lot of the times I end up saying, well, if I'm doing something in earnest, I have to just do it. Like I can't care too much and too hard. And I will say, as far as dialect goes, this, if we got writers in the chat, dialect is just hard in general because we don't often see the way we speak written. And so it might feel wrong because there's just a certain je ne sais quoi to when you talk that just gets lost when you have to write it down. And that might be a thing, but I don't know. I think in general, I err on the side of if you're doing something good, you just got to do it. If you're doing something with love and in love, you just have to imagine because it's part of the, we're talking about speculative fiction, Afrofuturism. For a lot of us, we're just imagining what it would be like, and that the imagination is part of it. Yeah, I don't know if that answers the question. It's a lot of conflicting feelings.
It is. And I also know that having, and this is where I'm going to take a moment to shout out Rebel Women's Lit Book Club, which is a queer Caribbean book club based in Jamaica, right? And who also had an interview with Junauda. And that was really lovely to see, like Junauda speaking to Caribbean readers living in the Caribbean, and to see the love that they gave her.
Yeah.
That was just beautiful. But I think it's my thoughts are unfinished on the point. I just wanted to sort of like put it in there because if you layer that on top of the fact that it's hard for writers in the Caribbean to get their books out, to publish the books, get their books out, and that I understand. I think what happened with this book is like you've got the power of a huge publishing house behind you, right? And so the books are then sold in the Caribbean and presented by an American audience as like authentically Caribbean, sold back to people actually in the Caribbean, in a context where like there isn't the support, right, for Caribbean writers. Also, in thinking about this question, I was like, I don't know of a Black queer YA magical story involving two Black girls in love. I don't know. I don't know where that story is written by like a Trinidadian about Trinidad. I accept that it may be there and I've never heard of it. But I'm happy that this story is here. I value this story for what it is. And but I do think it's contested territory, and that is, it's a greater conversation about publishing, who tells the stories, access to publishers, access to a market, and then also boundaries and identity and the interplay between those of us in the diaspora who are like reaching and grasping and trying to like weave together our fractured identities, and those in our various homelands who are receiving and entering into dialogue with us, hopefully from a place of, and usually from a place of like interrogation and critique, but also like love and a desire for that voice to be honored, because there's so much pain, right? The Middle Passage did a lot to us, right? So yeah, I wanted to raise that. So is there anything else about the story that you want to talk about?
I would like to take a moment to talk about astrology.
Yes.
We have a Taurus, right, in the building?
Uh-huh.
And we have a Leo. And we have a Leo in the building.
Of course you are, Evelyn.
My Mars is in Taurus. So, but yeah, so there were poems all throughout this book, one for each astrological sign. And of course, I bookmarked my sun and moon in ascending, just to get a sense of it. And of course, because Whitney Houston is our Leo queen.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I just wanted to see what you thought of the poems, if they resonated with you. Yeah.
So I will say that the poetry resonated for me more when I heard Junauda speak it, because like reading poetry for me is not as moving as hearing it. And I also find poetry difficult to read. Like I find it uncomfortable. I don't even know how to talk about, I find it hard to talk about poetry because I tend to just experience it. But I have to say, if you in the chats haven't had an opportunity to read this book, I would definitely commend the audio book to you, because it's a pleasure to hear Junauda read her own poetry. So I loved the poetry. I didn't try to make sense of it in the story. Like I didn't try to say like, how does this fit and who's this character and whatever. I just wanted to make it kind of like wash over me. So, but I do want to talk about Taurus season. I'm going to just read it because it's short.
What page is that?
It's page 265. The black girls crave dirt to chew, taking commune from the soil, sucking and chewing the minerals out the land like marrow out of bone, absorbing somebody daddy tears, digesting somebody mama rage. They make delicacy from the leftovers. They lay down on earth and it's night. They lay hands on their own throats, singing rock steady to the stars. And it was church on clay and patience, and they welcomed the stillness. They was birthed from the mother of sweetness, of honey and cinnamon and rose and rivers of sugarcane juice to drink. The goddess crowned of horns, don't test her. Raven-skinned women of Hathor, pleasure conjurers, shaved heads and pretty smiles. They collect the wisdom in the heartache and accumulate secondhand books to waterfall. They lives and they make queendom from the forgotten spaces we was banished to, and laugh when the sun rise on their dynasty. So for me, there were so many pieces there that felt like me, that I could speak to, like things that were very surface, like waterfalls and bald heads and stillness. But also like as a Taurus sun, for me, like I really identify with the Ferdinand the Bull expression of Taurus. Like, give me a tree and a patch of grass and some warmth, and I'm good.
Yeah,
like, fruits and something to drink. Like, leave me in a park and don't talk. That is a peaceful place for me. And so there was so much like dirt and earth and the sensualness of that. But also like the transformative elements of like the spirit and the earth, like that was there, like being able to take the bad things and understand that you can make something of them, or make something of what's left over So
Yeah.
you can leave the bad things to be bad, but you can also make beautiful things from the leftovers. So the molding and the clay. There's a lot of Oshun in this particular poem, and I loved that. And of course, like sugarcane juice to drink, honey and cinnamon and rose and rivers, like
Decadence.
just sensual, lusciousness, eroticism, and I just like I remember reading that and trying to pay particular attention to the Taurus one, and I saw the things that I love in it. So yes, and loved I loved all of the poetry, and I underlined a few like phrases, but I just loved that the story was punctuated by it. So that's what I think of the astrology. But speak on it.
Yeah, so I'm a Leo Sag. So I try to study the Leo season and Sagittarius season poems a little more than the others. It's always interesting. Being a Leo is interesting. Being a Leo woman, socialized as a woman, is also interesting. And that's why I think I especially loved Whitney Houston being in this story. Because we don't have many examples of, you know, the braggadociousness, the shine bright like a diamondness. That's all seems very male sometimes in the storytelling of being a Leo. And so I appreciated Whitney being in there. But yeah, I think I'll read Leo season. Let me just read Leo season.
Do it.
Okay.
What page is it on?
Oh, it's on 38.
Okay. Also, I wish that my English class was like this growing up.
Yes.
Can we go on?
Okay, Leo season. You that cool cat who bought the 3-piece suit off layaway and wore the alligator Stacey Adams to the club so we could bask in you. A yearning to be in the care of your arms, the protection of your pride. Deep, warm bastet. I don't know what bastet is.
It's an Egyptian sun goddess, I think.
Okay. Deep, warm bastet, sun queen of kings, lover of lovers, generously ours, bounding in power and flourishing in your softness. You make the dapper divine and the royal real, and you roar heavenly laughter, all sweet, a lioness sunflower full of seeds and heat. You are an immediate feeling, adored for your sensuality and fierceness, and for the luxury of your smile. Leo sun, wild for us, hot for us, to surround ourselves in your glow and sultry and burning.
So is that you, Evelyn?
It be feeling like that. It be feeling like that. And sometimes I'm like, dang, I be wanting to tap into it more. Yeah, and so that made me realize, oh, that's something I can tap into. So I appreciated the astrology kind of flowing through the book, and especially Afua's like desire to learn more about it and kind of how he latched onto it in the book. And then how Mabel was like, "What's your sign?" She was like doing everybody's like birth charts. So yeah, I really like that.
Yeah, so Bastet or Bast was a goddess of ancient Egyptian religion, worshipped as early as the Second Dynasty. I always like hear Bast and the cat and Egypt. That's like,
oh, okay, got you. I got you.
goddess of protection, cats, perfume, ointments, fertility, pregnancy, children, music, the arts, and warfare. That's just like a quick Wikipedia situation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you want to read another one? Because I know you said Leo Sag.
Oh yeah, let me read Sagittarius. So I'm a Sagittarius moon. So let's see. That is page 169.
Okay.
Sagittarius season. Hood blocks are auction blocks. He took the noose off his own neck. He knew he deserved a gold chain and a Jupiter ring. Boy philosophers, tenure on the corner, on blocks, ghetto institutions of knowledge, local community college, writing notes in his head and back pocket notebooks, Hoofing through cement streets, Mansa Musa descendant got gilded memories in his blood and asks every day, how many dime bags does it take to bring back stolen abundance? How many dime bags does it take so everyone can have gold dangling from them and Jordans on their feet? How we gonna cash checks earned over infinite black lifetimes? She said stars bring everyone back to their own Mecca. Satisfaction come from outsmarting the riddle, and she knew they hunted our bodies, and they would make us pay if she ain't make them pay first, she utters under her breath. Strategy. Hunter of the mind, soul architect. She got pulled like Ganymede, and she used her fire for alchemy, harnessing the thin line between tool and weapon. Let the fire become lava, and it will create lands for Eden. I like that too.
Mm-hmm.
I like that too. I felt the Sagittarius one a little bit more, but yeah. Just being a traveler and wanting to like see all there is to see, you know.
Yeah.
So
so I think I think I've covered like everything that I wanted to talk about the book. Is there anything that we need to get into before we kind of
do our thing?
move on and do our thing? Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Anything else? I mean, in general, I'm glad this book exists. I actually don't know, but I wish I read this book. I wish this book existed when I was younger.
Mm-hmm.
Just to be able to see different ways of being and them all being okay and fun and like vibrant and magical and some littered with a little trauma, but what isn't, but yeah, this story, like you, I was like bawling at the end, just because it was so needed. It was so needed, and so I underlined it at the end. I think it was the second to last chapter.
What page?
306.
Mm-hmm.
And it says, all we see is the limitless black sky, and all we hear is the roar ahead before we descend into an unknown thrill. Yes! And that was like, yo, I might get that tatted on my chest. It was just that pretty much encapsulated, like, what it is to be alive. It's like you don't freaking know what it's finna be. But it's an unknown thrill. And so even making that decision to choose to interpret something as exciting versus anxiety inducing. And saying like, no, I'm going to be excited because I don't know what's about to happen. It's also really, really lovely. So
we didn't get a lot of it, but I loved when Neri wrote and told Mabel about Rose Maroon, about this like place in Trinidad where she could be with other queer 291.
Oh yeah.
Audrey, she said, right now I is working for the landladies of the house who live upstairs, Miss Rosalind, who is a professor, and Miss Hosanna, who's a seamstress, helping them with sewing in different odds and ends while I try to figure out what I will do next. They are in their 60s and is like us too. They say I can stay here as long as I need. These people saved my life, Audrey. They help me feel like I deserve to live and be myself, and I ain't have to be ashamed for how I love. And she's like, you can come, you can stay here too if you come. But like I know that there are places like this. I know that there are many vibrant and powerful queer communities that create safe spaces across the Caribbean. But I loved that even though Neri was like absent for most of the story, I loved getting an answer to what happened to her I love that she stole and ran away and saved herself and went through a passage herself.
Yeah.
From I've taken that ferry from Trinidad to Tobago, and so she walks, she wears her school clothes, and she walks and she walks and she looks for a family member, and then that moment where she too is in a food lineup, and those two like queer university students, I think, were just like, have
we clocked you.
Yeah. And they're like, didn't we see you at a club somewhere? Which is so funny because like there's a kind of indirect way that in my experience that Trinidadian people will speak to each other, which is just like, I'm not gonna like out you, but I'm gonna say, like, I'm gonna convey my message to you. Like, I see you over there. Didn't I see you in this place before? Wink, wink. And you can say no and you're not outed, or you can say yes, come save me because I need you. And also like hearing that the people who, because in queer community, like for me, what I remember is that like, there's a lot of predators, right? And it's not unusual to have a situation where, you're young, you're just coming out, you need family, and you want to connect to somebody. And it's true that can sometimes be preyed upon. And for us to get another moment of sweetness where she is seen for who she is, and then she's held and she's put to work in a safe environment, a chosen family, a chosen community that's healthy, that's intergenerational, where you can be queer and safe. And that's amazing, right? So I really loved that too. Oh, okay. Are we complete? Okay, cool. So obviously last time what we did was, Evelyn, this is what you asked for. You wanted whimsical, you wanted Caribbean, you were open about like the ages, but you wanted like whimsy and magic. So taking all of these things together, was the Read It and Book recommendation to your liking, Evelyn?
It was extremely to my liking. It hit the nail on the head in so many different categories, like you said. It was just nice. I mean, I don't know how else to put it. Of just like experiencing different age groups and how they all relate to each other and how they are all involved in each other's lives, I think was super valuable. And I did appreciate the whimsy. It was whimsy. Love is whimsical. What can I say? So I like that it was about love and it was about the magic of love. And that even though we did have some dark moments because life would be sucking, it was light and airy like I kind of wanted it to be. So I would say stellar recommendation.
Yay! Okay, I'm very happy about that. Very happy. So I'm going to open up my Melanin Eclectic reading planner so that I can write down what you are, where we're going to go now. So for those of you who are new, this is where I ask Evelyn what she's feeling for, and then we get a recommendation in the moment.
Yes.
So, and while I turn around and look for books, you talk to the people about whatever you need to. Okay, let me just get a pen.
All right, people, we're gonna keep this going. Okay. The reading continues, the stories continue. I would like a story about maybe like the main character be a guy. That would be interesting.
Cool.
Let me see.
Mood.
Something sciencey.
Okay.
And mood, I would say, what are some mood words?
so Lagoon was, it was like, there was anxiety, it was fast paced. It was like political and so on, right? So there's like an edgy, fast-paced anxiety, right? Kind of raising feel. And then we've got like this book would be like sweet, right? Sweet and magical would be more of the mood. So like, you know, what, like after coming off of this, what are you kind of feeling? Or how do you want to feel when you read it?
I want to feel like this is so intense. I want to feel like my mind is expanding.
Okay.
Yeah. Like, wow, I don't know what this is.
Yeah. Okay.
Like,
okay.
What? Yeah.
Okay. And then we're going to try and get as many of these things all together. And then in terms of like, well, you already said kind of like science-y. So you want more, we're moving away from some like the magic stuff and we're getting a little like,
yeah,
kind of concrete a little bit, right? Okay, I know what you like in terms of length. And male protagonist will narrow things down. So I'm going to keep some flexibility in terms of like the place.
Yes.
And then I was originally going to ask you if you wanted to read like a novel or a collection of short stories and so on, but I'm hearing that we're going to like a standalone kind of thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it could be a bit longer. Like that's
longer.
Cool. Yeah.
Mind expanding. Okay. Now, how much disorientation can you take?
I feel like I can take a lot.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't mind being disoriented in terms of story. I wouldn't want to be disoriented in terms of actual vocabulary.
Okay, yeah. We'll take care of that.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got main character is a guy, more science-y, mind expanding. You're good with like a serious degree of disorientation.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, good. Why
all right.
Riley? Okay, so you talk. I have a couple of things in mind, but I have a couple of things in mind. You just talk to the people.
Honestly, people, I'm just blessed to be here, to be receiving the blessing that is an on-demand book recommendation. It happens here, y'all. Onyx Pages on YouTube. # read a damn book. We have these chats quarterly. So this will be our third. This book that we're discovering together will be our third book, which means we're going to chat about it sometime in July. What is that, July? June? July?
Yeah, it's going to be July.
Yeah, so I'm excited. Usually, I can't even lie, I'd be reading these books under short notice. But I feel like for this one, I'm going to have to like put in some work, which I'm excited to do. So, yeah, like just seeing the books, I'm excited. Speaking of books, I think I'm going to start reading Lovecraft Country because I never finished the TV show. So I might do that, but who knows? You know, that's not written by a black person.
So okay. I'm as I like get this stack together, I realize there might be some more that I want to take you through, but actually keep talking. I just
All right. All right. So yeah, # read a damn book, you know, by any means necessary, especially for me. So I think it's really important, to get into it, get in how you fit in. And if honing it honing in on a specific genre, specific subject matter helps you do that, I'm down for the cause. I actually didn't know much about how magical realism is like distinctly Latinx, but that makes sense because all the books I enjoy that have magical realism are usually like Chicano specifically. But it's great. We love we love it. We love it.
So here we go. People are. Oh, that one is yes. Thank you, friends.
Collaboration.
Okay, so here's the thing.
Okay.
I am gonna need somebody who's here who's a mod. So Tati and Brittany, can you just check if you have the ability to generate a poll in YouTube? If it gives you that potential, because if you do, because we might need a thing. Okay, so one of the things that we talked about was that we wanted to like keep it open for us to read a book that I haven't read before. So I was trying to think about things that I have read, but also things that I haven't. Now, folks, if you are interested in, putting a recommendation in the chat too, then let me know. I pulled Rosewater because I haven't read that. Okay, so the first, I'm excited because the first author that I thought of was Samuel R. Delany. So this is like classic science fiction,
right,
which tends to like written in like the 70s and stuff, which tends to be like, tends to be like harder science fiction to enter into. And Samuel R. Delany, for those who don't know, is a Black gay man who was like writing science fiction right from the beginning. And so any opportunity to dive into his work, I think is amazing. So I have two books.
Okay.
But there are more because there are lots of male protagonists, but one's trippy. Okay. So the first one is The Ballad of Beta 2. So as you can see, it's very tiny. And this was published in 1965. Wow. Okay. So I'm going to read the back. Anthropology student. So it's science fiction. It's spacey. It's spacey and like there's an engineering kind of like that's the element that we're dealing. And then it's obviously like out in space, spaceships and stuff.
Yeah.
So anthropology student Jonani was sent out on a quest he didn't want to find the meaning of the Ballad of Beta 2. For the ballad was the only clue that even hinted at what had happened to spaceship Beta 2's missing crew of galactic colonists. Jonani's search for the answer led him on a course of indescribable terror and to a miraculous understanding.
Whoa.
So even the descriptions, like the art of describing a book, like that's an art that I need to see revived. Because Samuel Delany's like descriptions are like poetry in and of themselves. So they kind of like give you a sense of the mood, but not so much of the story. So that is The Ballad of Beta 2.
Okay.
The other book, so I've read this. Okay. The other book is a Samuel R. Delany one. It's one that I'm going to be reading anyway. But this is trippy. And it's not short. Okay? Just so that we're all clear. It is 877 pages.
All right. Okay.
Okay. So this is a commitment. So this is Dahlgren. So let me okay. So here's the description. A portrait of a city called Bologna, which has suffered a disaster so cataclysmic that the very fabric of the space-time continuum has been distorted. Buildings burned endlessly but are not consumed. Radio and television broadcasts cannot enter or leave the city. The sky is sealed with thick haze. When it clears, strange portents are seen. 2 moons, a grotesquely swollen sun. Okay? Again.
That's it? That's the description?
It tells you nothing. It tells you nothing.
Okay.
But this is like one of the holy grail books that if anybody's interested in like Black science fiction and fantasy and wants to read classics, Dahlgren is like canon, right? It's also long. I am reading it with Tati in August, but I will move it up if you choose this one. So this is like super intense. So these are the two Samuel R. Delaney's books. Okay, now we move into a couple that. So the rest. Okay, I'll talk about one. This. Okay, I was gonna talk about The Water Dancer, but the magic is too soft for what you've asked for.
Okay.
And I've read it. So these 4 that I'm gonna recommend now are ones that I haven't read. But let's go. So this one is called Temper by Nikki Drayden.
Okay. And
the reason I picked this is because I think there might be a sciencey element to it, but let's read it and we'll see.
Okay.
So, 2 brothers, 7 vices, 1 demonic possession. Can the relationship survive? Okay, it's not really sciencey. Do you want to hear the description anyway?
Yes.
Okay. Aben Mtuze has more vices than he can deal with, 6 to be exact, each branded down his arm for all the world to see. They mark him as a lesser twin in society, as inferior, but there's no way he'll let that define him. Aben is intelligent and outgoing, and his spirited antics make him popular among the other students at his underprivileged high school. So what if he's envious of his twin Kasim, whose single vice brand is a ticket to a better life, one that likely won't involve Aben? The twins' strained relationship threatens to snap when Aben starts hearing voices that speak to his dangerous side, encouraging him to perform evil deeds that go beyond innocent mischief, lechery, deceit, and vanity. And then there are the inexplicable blood cravings. Oh boy, this is not the same. On the southern trip of an African continent that could have been, demons get up to no good during the time of year when temperatures dip and temptations rise. Aben needs to rid himself of these maddening voices before they cause him to lose track of time, to lose his mind, and to lose his temper. So it doesn't get into the sciencey, but it was good to hear that.
Yeah, but not for this one. Not for this one.
Putting that aside. Okay, so this is The Lesson by Caldwell Turnbull.
Okay.
So the next 2 are going to be like spaceshipy kind of like SF. Yeah. So an alien ship rests over Water Island. For 5 years, the people of the U.S. Virgin Islands have lived with the Yana, a race of super advanced aliens on a research mission they will not fully disclose. They are benevolent in many ways, but they meet any active aggression with disproportional wrath. This has led to a strained relationship between Yana and the local Virgin Islanders, and a peace that cannot last. A year after the death of a young boy at the hands of a Yana, 3 families find themselves at the center of the inevitable conflict, witness and victim to the events that will touch everyone and teach a terrible lesson. So there's kind of like alien, like the SFF, but more on the alien side of things. Mm-hmm. And then the audience has suggested Rosewater by Tade Thompson. Rosewater is a town on the edge, a community formed around the edges of a mysterious biodome. Its residents comprise the hopeful, the hungry, and the helpless. People eager for a glimpse inside the dome or a taste of its rumored healing powers. Caro is a government agent with a criminal past. A sensitive, he can navigate the massive psychic space created by the dome. But when something within the dome begins killing off other sensitives, Caro must defy his masters to avert a horrifying future. So that's Rosewater. Okay. It is one of a trilogy. And then, as I think about, let me just see. Yeah, that's more fantasy. There's one more that I want to talk about, and there's it's the male protagonist that gets us really narrow. There's a bunch of subplots here, but it doesn't fully it doesn't fully center around a man, but I'm just going to read this so we hear it. So this is The Prey of Gods by Nikki Drayden. In South Africa, the future looks promising. Personal robots are making life easier for the working class. The government is harnessing renewable energy to provide infrastructure for the poor. And in the bustling coastal town of Port Elizabeth, the economy is booming thanks to the genetic engineering industry, which has found a welcome home there. Yes, the days to come are looking very good for South Africans. That is, if they can survive the present challenges. A new hallucinogenic drug sweeping the country, an emerging AI uprising, and an ancient demigoddess hell-bent on regaining her former status by preying on the blood and sweat, but mostly blood, of every human she encounters. It's up to a Zulu girl powerful enough to destroy her entire township, a queer teen plagued with the ability to control minds, a pop diva with serious daddy issues, and a politician with even more serious mommy issues to band together to ensure there's a future left to worry about. In a style both fun and fantastical, Nikki Drayden takes her brilliance as a short story writer and weaves together an elaborate tale that will capture your heart even as one particular demigoddess threatens to rip it out.
Whoa.
So let me just see if anybody else has thoughts. Okay, there's nowhere to make a poll. Okay, cool. Yeah, Tananarive do. No, she wouldn't have something like that. Horror. Yep. Between. So Musical Tati says, not sciencey, and her only book with a male protagonist is The Between, which deals with metaphysical death and dual life nights. Yeah, it's not. She just doesn't fit for the section. I wish I could undo your retraction at Reed Kicker. Oh, I don't know who that is. Okay. All right. So first of all, do you have are there any books that I've read so far that sound like synopses that sound interesting to you to explore? I'm just trying to see if there's anything. It's the male protagonist that I am wanting to make sure that I cover. Most of these do not have male.
Do you have anything between Ballad of Beta 2 and that other one that I don't know the name? I forgot the name of. Dahlgren?
Like of Samuel Delaney's?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's enough. Well, there's I have a whole Samuel Delaney line, but there's I'm just thinking of there's the Towers. There's City of a Thousand Suns, but that's a couple. There's the Einstein Connection. Between in what way?
Between in terms of length.
Length. Okay. So you want a Delaney?
Yeah.
You want a Delaney. Okay.
But when you said the word trippy, you got me.
Okay. A lot of his stuff is pretty trippy. I haven't read a ton. There's
Musical Tati says Babel 17.
Yeah, so we did. That was the one that the Tale of Beta 2. I didn't tell you about Babel 17. But Babel 17 is around the same length. It's pretty short as well. You wanted something you could kind of sink your teeth into. So let's see. There's Triton, which is a little bit longer.
Because right now it's looking like I still don't remember the name. Dahlgren? Yeah. Yeah, it's looking like that, but I'm kind of intimidated
by the length. Okay. So this is actually a whole trilogy. So here's what I'll say about Samuel Delaney. That he's got a very particular style. And I actually think that taking Delaney in small doses, if you're new to Delaney, and this is speaking from my own personal experience, is actually a good thing. Okay. And we could change it up. We could read 2. We have 2 months. So if you wanted to try the shorter one and then something else that's also short, that's right. Like that's also something we can think about, because a lot of his other stuff that I have are all like there aren't a lot of standalone ones that I can think of. But let me just see Nova. Yeah, this is like, Nova is a fast action, far-flung interstellar adventure as archetypical, mystical / mythical allegory in which the tarot and the grail both figure prominently. It's a modern myth told in the SF idiom. The reader observes, recollects, or participates in a range of personal human experiences. Like it's a lot, like this doesn't even tell you what the story is about, but it's like, this one's very like a mind-altering space roadshow, it looks like.
So I'm thinking then Ballad of Beta 2.
The Ballad of Beta 2?
Yeah.
The other, Babel 17 is also really beautiful. I don't have it right here because I have 2 copies of it, but the Ballad of, wait, what did Tati say? Oh, Babel 17. So Babel 17 is a story where there's this code that has to be like decoded and kind of understood. Like there's some poetry, there's sort of fast action, there's space travel. There are a lot of different characters, but the main character is like the male captain of a ship, and I think there's also a woman who's involved, if I can remember that. So they might be. I think that's a standalone as well. So You tell me. I've talked at you a lot. I think, given the criteria, this should just be like a solo Evelyn pick.
Okay, this is what I'm going to do. I would like to read the Ballad of Beta 2.
The Ballad of Beta 2.
With the hope, with the goal of, I don't know how you and Musical Tati are going to read the other one, but I would like to also read that one sometime.
In the future.
Yes.
In the Afro future, we will read that.
Yes.
Can I offer you another option that is a little bit different from what you have suggested, but something I just want you to hear about, because the mood, there's a mood element to this that I want you to just know about. And it's actually a collection of short stories.
Okay.
And it's called Friday Black.
Ooh.
And this is Nana Kwame Adjei-Brenyah. And here's a little bit about the collection.
Okay.
From the start of this extraordinary debut, Nana Kwame Adjei-Brenyah's writing will grab you, haunt you, enrage, and invigorate you. By placing ordinary characters in extraordinary situations, Adjei-Brenyah reveals the violence, injustice, and painful absurdities that Black men and women contend with every day in this country. These stories explore urgent instances of racism and cultural unrest, and the ways we fight for humanity in an unforgiving world. In Finkelstein 5, Adjei-Brenyah reckons with the brutal prejudice of our justice system. In Zimmerland, we see a far too easy to believe imagining of racism as sport. And Friday Black and How to Sell a Jacket, as told by Ice King, show the horrors of consumerism and the toll it takes on us all. Entirely fresh in style and perspective, and sure to appeal to fans of Colson Whitehead, Marlon James, and George Saunders, Friday Black confronts readers with a complicated, insistent, wrenching chorus of emotions, the final note of which, remarkably, is hope. And this collection has like a couple of stories that are like, there's a story that takes place on the internet, like the setting in the internet.
Oh, wow.
There's a story that engages like the world of like gaming. There's a story that looks at like shopping, and some like the violence of that. Like it's a very excellent collection. And from what I recall, many of the protagonists in the short stories are Black men. So yeah, there's that. Yeah, there's that as well, and it's pretty short. So
I still think I'm gonna go the Ballad of Beta 2.
Yes.
Yes.
Got it. Got it. Okay. And it's, you know what? And it's nice and compact. Yeah. I have thoughts about it, and I want to read that with you. Okay.
All right.
So we have the Ballad of Beta 2. We are getting into Samuel R. Delany. So that's great. All right. Now for where we go from here, our next live is going to be in July. What I wanted to ask, we sort of talked about this, which was like, how do we like engage people who are reading with us in the 2 months in between? So
yeah,
what do you think?
While
still keeping it like low key.
Yeah, I think that's a great question.
Like right now over Instagram, people are, some people are using the hashtag and saying like, I'm looking forward to the live show and like that kind of thing. I don't want either of us to be like, feel like burdened with like other things to do. But maybe we can just invite people to use the hashtag, and if they want to take pictures of what they're reading and tag their stories and stuff, like,
absolutely.
Do you think that's good? Okay.
Yeah, definitely use the hashtag, read a damn book. It could be this book, it could be whatever damn book you read. I think that's a good thing. I mean, if we want to pop in, maybe like an Instagram live situation, not to like discuss the book, but talk about reading. I think I always enjoy listening to people talk about reading and like what it does for them, what storytelling does for them. So I mean, I think we could do things like that.
Okay.
A lot more. We could definitely pop in a lot more frequently than the week before.
And also to allow ourselves grace to like not can't too, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And do you have any announcements before we go?
I don't believe that I do.
Series or something, or maybe like a Patreon.
I do have a Patreon with my little brother. He's my only brother. And we are at patreon.com/fromtheinternets, plural. And we have a Patreon exclusive podcast called This Might Not Make Sense. And it's more of a variety show because it's a video, and we also have skits and original music, and it's kind of like our playground where we put all the things that we don't know where else to put them for people to enjoy. So we just put out episode 2, I think on Friday, maybe. And we talked about Killmonger. So if you want to talk about Black Panther with us, that is up on our Patreon now. So patreon.com/fromtheinternets. Yes.
And also, I'm just going to say that I am eagerly awaiting Hardly Working with you and Halise.
So Hardly Working, tentative title, we don't know. It might be taken already. Is a web series that I'm co-writing with Halise, who has a YouTube channel. Her name is spelled Hallease. And it's a comedy web series about 2 administrative assistants in the HR department doing everything but their jobs. So it's fun time. We've actually finished writing all the episodes, all 5 episodes, I believe. And now we're just figuring out rewrites and what to do, how to do it.
Well, you did, like when you stopped posting on YouTube at the end of last year, you asked us to keep you accountable and to like let you know that we wanted you to follow your heart, like do all this stuff. So this is like #internet cousin accountability.
Yes.
So you for giving us an update as to what you are doing and following your heart
Yes.
song. So I'm sure everybody is waiting to, like, you know, support
Thank
that.
you.
So
Thanks.
thank you
Yes.
for sharing that.
Yeah.
All right. So everybody, thank you for staying in the chats with us and for participating in hashtag Read a Damn Book. Shameless plug, my birthday is coming up on May 1st. I'm a Taurus baby. May Day and Beltane and all of the like cool things that happen on the 1st of May. I will be doing a live show on my birthday. There may be guests. I'm still figuring it out. But just stay tuned. And I will say that one of my goals is to reach 10,000 subscribers by May 1st. And I'm, 1,000 away from that pretty much. So we will see. We will see what the internet goddesses have in store for me. If you are not subscribed to Onyx Pages, now would be a really great time because yes, it is a personal goal, and we will see if we can make some magic. So, so thank you all for being here and for being a part of this experience. And Evelyn, you're the best.
Thank you,
cousin I had.
Yes, I love this. I love us.
Yes. And thank you, Junauda, for creating such a space for us to just like get teary and to love. I don't even know what my book is, Love Life. And thank you, Brittany, for creating a planner that is Black girl magic, Black mermaid sweetness that just like radiates and has the same color scheme as the book we just read. So so thank you for making that happen. And for Tati and Tomi, who have like supported in the back end as well. Okay, everyone, we are no longer going to be live. Have a great rest of your Sunday. Read this, and Evelyn will see you on the internet somewhere.
All right. Bye.
Bye.